But the big thing you want to inspect is the oil pressure gauge. And that's the one that can cause you grief. When it starts leaking, it actually can drip oil on your feet. That's right. This happened to my daughter. She had oil dripping on her feet. So I've heard it happen to a number of other customers. So you want to kind of catch this early. This one here has just started to leak. You'll see it actually come out the lower part here if it's really bad. So this one is just beginning to weep. You can see the oil wetness when you pull these little lights out. Let's see if we can get this light out. You can see it. See, look at the oil there. See the amount of oil? This will cause your bulb contacts to fail and your lights won't work right. You'll even get oil in the potentiometer and that'll stop working. And then eventually it's going to drip on your feet. Now the seller should have divulged this in his description because this was obviously leaking oil. But he said, well, you know, there's no guarantee. But I think a lot of times, you know, on these eBay parts, I don't think people are being really honest. If they would say, look, this is a cluster that you could probably get some good parts of, but it is wet with oil in the back. You know, of course, he did say the plastic was broken off. But he explained the whole thing and totally avoided saying anything about the oil. And that's probably the most valuable part on this entire cluster is this oil pressure gauge. Now, these oil pressure gauges are replaceable as a complete unit, or you can replace just the part. We have parts available on my website. They're not new. This is not available new anymore, but I source good used ones, and then I have instructions which show you how to take this off, get this oil pressure unit out and reinstall it in your cluster. This one's out of a W123. It says, you know, 82 is probably 82300D, and it's just started to leak. And this is a cluster out of a W116, which I recently purchased, and the seller said, you know, it's working. Of course, what does that mean, working? And this is what I really don't like. It's obvious this has been leaking oil, but somebody went in there with a rag, see that, and kind of wiped it away. They didn't clean it very good. They didn't try to hide it very good. But when you pull these light bulbs out, look at the amount of oil right here. So this is the unit that leaks right here. This pressure unit that moves the needle will start to leak, and it starts out leaking just a very little bit, and you will not know by the operation of the gauge because the gauge works fine. And when it first begins to leak, it's just a small amount, just barely wetting the backside. So this is why you want to pull your cluster out and inspect it. You want to spot this leak before it gets too bad, and you want to spot it early enough that you have time to kind of source a replacement part, because like I say, these are not available new anymore, and they're going to be harder and harder to find in good condition because I'm seeing so many of them, just like these two here, you know, recently purchased on eBay. Both of them are bad. A word to the wise, I don't need to say any more. This part here, I've learned how to take it out and replace it. And you can do it. I even provide a special tool which will allow you to get this needle off without bending it or damaging it. That's probably the hardest part. You have to actually pop the needle off and then take this face off and get in here and replace this part right here. This is the part that leaks. And this is the part I have available on my website along with that special tool and complete instructions on how to do this yourself. Be forewarned, if you have one of these W116s and W123s, I highly recommend you take your instrument cluster out and give it a good inspection.